mess. Dirt, mud on my boots. I need a shave. My hair needs combing. Straw sticking out my pockets. A lady probably thought I was out to rob her. Not too polite, I suppose, showing up like this. What the hell? I'm not a guest. I'm a bill collector. Nobody said I have to dress right.
You take too many liberties, you know that.
What?
Nothing, just nothing.
Who do you think you're talking to? Just shut up. Oh. I'm mad. I'm so mad. Mad enough to blow up the world. Mad enough to get nasty. Hey, you! Oi!
My dear sir, I have lived so long in retirement, I have grown quite unused to the human voice, and I cannot stand shouting. I must earnestly beg you to respect my solitude.
Pay me my money and I'll go.
I have told you in no uncertain terms that I have no money here at the moment, and you will have to wait until the day after tomorrow.
And I have told you in no uncertain terms that I need the money today, not the day after tomorrow. If you don't pay me today, I may as well hang myself the day after tomorrow.
What can I do since I don't have the money?
You mean you're not going to pay me? Is that what you mean?
I can't.
In that case, I'll stay right here until I get it. You're going to pay me the day after tomorrow? Fine. I'll be sitting right here. Look, don't you believe I have a mortgage payment due tomorrow? Do you think I'm joking?
I asked you not to shout. You're not in a stable.
I didn't ask you about a stable. What I asked you was, don't you believe I have a mortgage payment due tomorrow?
You haven't the faintest idea of how to behave in a lady's presence.
I do know how to behave in a lady's presence.
No, you do not. You are ill-mannered and vulgar. No gentleman would speak like this in front of a lady.
Oh, pardon me. Just how would he speak in front of a lady? In French? Oh, madame, je vous prie. How charmed I am to know that you refuse to pay me my money. Pardon, am I upsetting you? Oh, what lovely weather we're having. My, don't you look exquisite in black.
You're being very stupid and not funny.
Stupid and not funny? I don't know how to behave in front of a lady. Woman, I have seen more ladies in my time than you've seen sparrows in yours. I've fought 3 duels over ladies. I've walked out on 12 ladies. 9 ladies have walked out on me. Oh, I used to be an idiot. Got crushes on them, whispered sweet nothings, clicked my heels, bowed and scraped, fell in love, suffered, sighed in the moonlight, froze up, melted into puddles. I could rattle on for hours about women's rights. I wasted half my life on women, but no more. Dark eyes, red lips, dimples in the cheeks, moonlight sighs of passion. Nah, I won't give you tuppence for any of it anymore. Present company accepted, of course, but all women are pretentious, affected, hateful, gossipy liars to the marrow of their bones. Vain, petty, merciless. They can't think straight, and as for this part here, why, excuse my frankness, but a pigeon has 10 times the brains of any philosopher in skirts. When you look at one of these romantic creatures, you see an ethereal goddess, an angel walking amongst us. And take a look at her soul, pure crocodile. The worst part of it is, this crocodile thinks she has a monopoly on the tender emotion of love. Damn it. Has any woman ever known how to love anything except her lapdog? She's in love, all she can do is snivel and whine. A man in love, he suffers, he sacrifices. But a woman? Her love shows up how? She swishes her skirts like it's a firm grip on your nose. You have the misfortune to be a woman, so at least you understand what a woman's nature is. Tell me honestly, have you ever seen a woman who was faithful and true? No, you haven't. The only honest and faithful women are old.
Episode 5, Squabble Leading to Duel. Popova's effort to convince Smirnov of the inappropriateness of his behavior in her house, where she is alone, does not make any impact on him. Sir, in my solitude I have grown unaccustomed to the masculine voice. In plaintive terms, she reveals the transformation her behavior has undergone during her mourning and begs of him not to disturb her peace. But Smirnov does not give in to her sorrowful explanations. Pay me the money and I'll go. Pretending that he is in desperation to pay the interest on his mortgage, he maintains a non-committal position. There is no room for suspecting that Popova is not going to pay the debt, but Smirnov pretends not to accept her offer to pay him after her steward's return. Also, on the basis of Popova's delicate nature, it is understood that there is a possibility, if he wants to collect the damage from her in case he has to pay the credit firm an extra amount as a penalty. So the romantic element in his intention to stay on, as well as the pretext in his explanation to his financial obligation, becomes clear. I told you perfectly, plainly, I haven't any money to spare. Wait until the day after tomorrow. And I told you perfectly plainly, I don't want the money the day after tomorrow, but today. If you don't pay me today, I'll have to hang myself tomorrow. The more she explains her plight without a possibility to pay the money immediately, the more he disregards her excuse. Thus, from moment to moment, he aggravates her helplessness. In fact, her usual self-assertive nature is of no use in her effort to escape from him. Smirnov sounds unreasonable and, in Popova's language, strange in his demand to pay the money on the spot. But he pretends that he behaves so under a type of pressure that compels him to commit suicide. Here he capitalizes on Popova's ignorance of the payment options and provisions available at financial institutions, such as paying a penalty for a delay in payment. In fact, a promissory note from Popova would suffice as a temporary solution to his crisis. He feels he has fabricated a good excuse to stay on arguing with her. "You are going to pay me the day after tomorrow? Very well. I'll stay here until the day after tomorrow. I'll sit here all the time." He repeats what he uttered in her absence, and yet senses the incongruity of it. He is self-explanatory in the question, "Oh, do you think I am doing this for a joke?" This reveals that his desperation is obviously pretentious. Popova finds his tone intolerable and sarcastically tries to raise his consciousness about where he is. This is unsustainable. In a response without a proper answer, he tends to jabber irrelevances. "You don't know how to behave before women." "No, I don't know how to behave before women." When she points at his lack of manners, he tries to be sarcastic and insolent. Decent people don't talk to women like that. When she talks about decency maintained by well-brought-up men, he imitates the greetings, praises, salutations, and all that transpire in the kind of sweet talk people carry out to show his awareness of them. Thus, Chekhov highlights a substantial package of manners that compose the hypocritical behavior people maintain in society. Through the encounter between Popova and Smirnov as members of the same class, meeting in disagreement, he reveals their falsehood. That silly and rude, Popova comments on his play acting with anger and repulsion. When Popova is adamant about his impoliteness before women, he begins narrating his adventures with women with a hyperbole. "Madam, in my time, I've seen more women than you've seen sparrows." In fact, this provides a profitable occasion for him to get her involved in a serious conversation. He boasts about himself fighting duels 3 times on account of women, refusing 12 women, and being refused by 9 women, to establish that he has meddled with a large number of women. He confesses to have played the fool, centered himself, used honeyed words, worn jewelry, and made beautiful bows in order to win over women. He recalls the romantic tendencies he used to have: to love, to suffer, to sigh at the moon, to get sour, to thaw, to freeze, to love passionately, madly, every blessed way, to chatter like a magpie about emancipation and waste half his wealth on tender feelings. Then he challenges her that she cannot get him to do those things again. "You won't get round me like that now." He profanes all features of femininity that are meant to attract men, such as black eyes, passionate eyes, ruby lips, dimpled cheeks, and the moon, the whispers, timid breathing. Using his tact, he carefully excludes Popova from the shabby generalizations he makes about women, but claims that all women, great or little, are insincere, crooked backbiters, envious liars to the marrow of their bones, vain, trivial, merciless, unreasonable. Thereafter, he conveys his skepticism about women's intelligence and farsightedness in a proverbial statement read as, "A sparrow can give 10 points to any philosopher in petticoats you like to name." Using the cliche poetic creatures, he reveals the elusiveness of the outward beauty of a woman in the metaphor of an ethereal demigoddess. In muslin that could generate 1,000,000 transports of joy, and the grotesque danger of a soul in the metaphor of a common crocodile. The imagery used here is no doubt influenced by the Italian Renaissance paintings. By gripping the back of a chair until it cracks and breaks, he threateningly pretends to eject his repulsion of women through physical means. He adopts the epithet this crocodile to call women in general in his attack on her appreciation of her own tender feelings as her beauty, power, and wealth. Chekhov highlights thus the 19th century Russian high society, where women used to vie for prominence through manners of politeness, mechanically imbibed and applied in a cosmetic sense. Further, he emphatically challenges her in a vertical question on women's ability to love another human. Have you met a woman who can love anybody except a lapdog? This suggests that miniature lapdogs always used to go with the outfits of upper-class fashionable women of the 19th century Europe. The eroticized image of the lady and the lapdog that emerges in his criticism of women, as Browning argues, serves as a trope for anxieties about male-female human intimacy prevalent at that time. He scorns at the tender feelings the women express when they are sentimental by interpreting them in terms of snivel and slobber. Sees women's melancholy responses to men's rigorous sacrifices as subtle attempts of manipulation, and articulates his contempt about Popova's womanhood by calling her destiny to be a woman a misfortune, and by rousing her curiosity about the burden of femininity. He ruthlessly questions about a youthful woman's capability of being sincere, faithful, and constant, and confirms his skepticism that such a woman is a non-existent or imaginary creature such as a cat with a horn or a white woodcock. Smirnov insults on women and praises for men appear contradictory to Popova, who has first-hand experience of her own husband as a fickle man full of vices. Men are faithful and constant in love. She repeatedly claims with sarcasm and laughs bitterly to show her dissension. What rights have you to talk like that? She questions him in resentment and tries to establish her opinion about men, with evidence from her own experience of her husband's dishonesty towards her. I loved him passionately with all my being, as only a young and imaginative woman can love. I gave him my youth, my happiness, my life, my fortune. I breathed in him. I worshipped him as if I were a heathen. And what then? This best of men shamelessly deceived me at every step. She reveals how selflessly she loved her husband, considering him a god and making him a sacrifice of her whole being to be disillusioned with his shameless impertinencies after his death. In her confession, Chekhov uses his language to depict the most supreme type of devotion that a woman would have towards a man once she is romantically inclined to him. Through Popova's revelation, he exposes the agony of most upper-class women of the 19th century Russia, who make posthumous discoveries of evidence about their husbands' long-prevailed clandestine relationships. The drawer full of love letters found in Nicholas' desk is highlighted as proof of all that he did for his selfish pleasure at the expense of his credulous wife, Popova. Popova repeats her present stance about her husband as a treacherous man and interprets her mourning as a punitive action taken against him, where her love and faith in him appear as weapons of psychological torture. The revenge strategy she means in her mourning matches the Christian doctrine of an immortal soul, where Thomas Aquinas taught that the soul is a conscious intellect and will and cannot be destroyed. It is surmised that by mourning his death, despite her knowledge of his betrayals, she tries to appear before his soul like an archangel and provoke him into a rage of regret, repentance, and penance in a purgatory fire. I have shut myself forever within these four walls and will wear these weeds to the very end. She utters her interpretation of her present behavior in serious terms to draw Smirnov's sympathy, but it has a contradictory effect on him and provokes him into contemptuous laughter. By highlighting Smirnov's rejection of her appeal, Chekhov achieves humor in Popova's attempt to preach a heretic. I don't understand what you take me for. Instead of sharing her grief, Smirnov paradoxically expresses his skepticism about her. Through Smirnov's sarcastic response that reflects his masculine rationality, Chekhov deconstructs the romantic nature of Popova's feminine sentimentality that used to be something adored in a woman within the 19th century Russian high society. Smirnov ridicules her emphasis on wearing weeds, a costume consisting of a hooded robe with an eye mask at a masquerade, for the sake of her late husband. It's so mysterious, so poetic. He means that it is a hypocritical way of earning the sympathy of the others. He imitates how a tame poet, a man who writes poetry and is disposed towards a woman so favorably like her lapdog, would comment on her in a serenade. We know these games. The bottom line of his discourse cynically exposes what he believes to be the ulterior motive of all the practices women follow in the event of getting widowed. In fact, this rouses Popova and compels her to ask Smirnov in a wild rage, "How dare you say all that to me?" Smirnov does not get alarmed but ridicules her act of mourning further. "You may have buried yourself alive, but you haven't forgotten to powder your face." This is a more forceful interpretation of his skepticism of Popova's grief. Popova has nothing else to do but repeat the same question she posed in her rage. Smirnov expresses his objection to Popova's tone, stressing that he is not her steward, and explains his straightforward manner of speaking belongs to his masculinity. However, now the confrontation between the two reaches an interesting juncture in the play. As he had intended before, Smirnov gets Popova involved in a real dispute. First, they argue about shouting. While Popova claims Smirnov shouts, Smirnov claims it is Popova who shouts. When Popova demands Smirnov to leave her alone, he asks her to pay his money immediately for him to leave. Angered by his behavior, Popova threatens him that she will not pay him his money. In response, Smirnov warns her not to start a quarrel. "I have not the pleasure of being either your husband or your fiancé, so please don't make scenes." Smirnov pretends that he is not infatuated with her beauty, and knowingly that she is not in a position to settle his debt immediately, hangs on just to bully her for some sadistic reason. He sits again despite Popova's objection, pretending that he is outraged by her behavior. "I don't want to talk to impudent scoundrels." She identifies Smirnov's true character through his present behavior. Finally, she summons her servant Luka to kick him out, but Luka is too weak to face him. Instead of kicking Smirnov out, he falls sick. The other servants, Dasha and Pelageya, are reported to have gone out to pick fruit, so Popova has to handle him all by herself. Suddenly, Smirnov comes to perceive an attraction in Popova and requests her to be more polite. Her response to this takes a contradictory form at once. Instead of being polite, she utters a string of insults. "You are a boor, a coarse bear, a bourbon, a monster." When questioned, she expresses her fearlessness about him. "And do you think that just because you are a poetic creature, you can insult me with impunity?" With a vertical charge on her for insulting him, he challenges her to fight with him. In the meantime, Luka gets back to his senses and calls for help. "Pistols!" In response, Smirnov calls for pistols, but just for sarcasm. His intention is only to provoke Popova into anger. In the absence of support from her servants, Popova defiantly accepts Smirnov's challenge. She demonstrates her observation of his masculine personality, featured by large fists and a bull's throat, but expresses her disregard of his physical stature. Smirnov is adamant that he should have a duel with her for the insult she made at him, in spite of her identity as one of the softer sex, and protests about the concession generally extended to women in matters of dignity. His contemptuous remarks about women harden Popova's obstinacy, and as a result, she dares to call for her husband's pistols. "What pleasure it will give me to put a bullet into your thick head." Her anger is vivid in her zeal to kill him in a duel. "Devil take you." She curses him for his disrespectful behavior towards her in the presence of her servants.